What is up, guys? This is Charlie, aka Hoodie Chucky, aka Skinny Penis, part of Spot Up Show, as always. I'm not here with Jordan today because, as I'll explain in a minute, um, he hasn't been invested too much in fantasy this year, and I have been paying attention to it and still setting my lineups, making moves. So I've been keeping an ear to the ground, as they say. And so we're gonna go over some fantasy sleepers today. And when I get to certain players, some are going to be more beneficial to redraft, and some are going to be more beneficial to dynasty slash keeper leagues. So I'll point out which ones I think are more beneficial to what. And just a little backstory for our league, the one Jordan and I are in. It was originally going to be a 3 keeper league. That's what we voted on. That's what we agreed on. That's what we drafted, with the mindset being. And after we got done with the draft, we had the suggestion to switch to full on dynasty next year. So we all voted and agreed on that. So the way it's gonna work is everyone will keep 3 keepers as normal, and then next year everyone who's left will be put into a draft, as well as the new rookies coming in, and then we'll all draft from there, and it'll be full dynasty from there on out. So as you can imagine, since changing to that type of premise concept, a lot of people just went full tank, went for the picks next year when it's going to be full dynasty. So there's not really a lot of people trying to win at the moment. I am one of the people that's still trying to compete, and there's a few other guys, but there's a lot of people that just basically traded everything, got their keepers, got their picks for next year, and now they're just waiting for next season. So our league hasn't been very interesting this year since making that change. So with that in mind, we're going to get right into the list. And this is something we're going to try to do at least once a week now, because I've had quite a few people come up to me and approach me and say, "Hey, I liked what you guys did on episode 1 with the fantasy stardom sit sleepers that we did. And, I would like to see more of that content. I would like more fantasy advice. There's not a lot of podcasts out there that do fantasy advice for fantasy basketball. You can find a million for football, but there's not a lot for basketball. So here we go. These are my fantasy sleepers. I'm going to start off the list at number 10 with Mason Plumlee. Now, this is definitely not a pretty option, but I want to say he has more value in redraft, because I can't really promise what his dynasty outlook is going to look like there on the Detroit Pistons, but they signed him to a 3-year deal this year. He is the starter for them. And aside from Jeremy Grant, their Detroit Pistons lineup is pretty out of whack, pretty ugly looking. Blake Griffin has not been the Blake Griffin that we all know and love. So he gets the minutes and he gets the stats. Like he's going to get you rebounds. He's probably going to put up at least 10 points. He's going to get some blocks in there. He's going to get some steals in there, normal center points. And he's not going to, wow you every week. But this is a guy, especially this year in redraft, that if he's just sitting there and you maybe need to bolster your center depth, this is a guy that I would go after right now. I don't think a lot of people are going to be keeping him. And there's always a chance that, the Detroit Pistons are going to look for someone younger, someone more talented there at center, now that Christian Wood's gone, to try, and look towards the future, basically. So I can't really promise his value staying consistent with what it is this year in a dynasty or keeper league. But for redraft this year, this is a guy I have him on my roster. This is a guy that I would take, and he can surprise you at least one game a week, and it'll help bolster your depth, and someone that I would keep an eye on and see if you could pick him up and just stash him on your bench. So number 9 here, this is going to be one that a lot of people maybe already have for keeper leagues, but for redraft, you might see this guy sitting on the waiver wire right now. And if you have a keeper league and this guy is there, I would definitely go and get him, or maybe buy low on him and get a little trade going. And that's Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson for the New York Knicks. I mean, he's a blocking machine. He's going to get the rebounds. He's going to get some points. And like I said, he's a blocking machine. That's one of the biggest stats, especially in a categories league that, that can help bolster you, give you points. You look at Miles Turner and what he's doing this year, Chris Boucher, the amount of points these guys are getting are because of the amount of blocks they get per game. And Mitchell Robinson is a great, great blocker. So he's a guy I definitely would try and go and get, especially in Dynasty, because it's only going to go up from here. And if he's just sitting there in redraft leagues and you need a center, you need some depth, go and get Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks are actually good this year, so he could be, getting a little bit more stats and playing time than he has in the past couple of years. So number 7, I'm going to go with Larry Nance Jr. from the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I definitely wouldn't really – I would suggest him more in Dynasty because the way I see it with the Cavaliers situation and the amount of centers that they have now after acquiring Jared Allen, Drummond is either going to sign somewhere next year in free agency or they're going to trade him this year. McGee's probably going to get bought out. And that just really leaves Jared Allen and Larry Nance Jr. down in the center. Kevin Love is going to retire or go somewhere else, probably go somewhere else. But so there's going to be a lot of opportunity freeing up in Cleveland in the next few months, next year. And with the, sudden eruption of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, Sexland, as we all like to call them, they are going to be a pretty solid team. They're going to be competing in games. And Larry Nance, you can look at his stats already, what he's put up this year. He is already getting a lot more opportunity, a lot more stats categorically than he has in the past. And, he's a little bit older. So if you want to stay away from him in Dynasty, I kind of understand. But he's still only 28. So this is usually like a basketball player's prime. And, this guy looks like he is in his prime of his career right now, as prime as he can be. And he's somebody that I would pick up for Dynasty, probably over redraft, but he's also good in redraft this year. So I would go and get him immediately if he's sitting there. You could probably buy low on him for a Dynasty candidate. And then I think his stats will go up once those trades and those signings that I talked about happen to the Cavaliers roster and a little bit more opportunity shows up there. So he's someone that I would definitely keep an eye on and try and go out and get. Okay, so my number 6 is going to be Kyle Anderson from the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know if people have really been paying attention to a lot of the other players on the Grizzlies because, everyone just thinks Ja Morant, Jonas Valanciunas, those are some of the big names. But Kyle Anderson, he is averaging 13.7 on the year, which is his best year ever, and 13 points, 7 rebounds, and he also plays a lot of defense. So he's going to get you those little category stats that you don't normally get, like the blocks and the steals from other types of forwards. And I've played against him a couple times already this season, and he has games where he puts up 40 fantasy points, or he puts up 30 fantasy points, close to 50 fantasy points. He's just a guy that's going to fill multiple boxes every week, and he does a little bit of everything, and that goes a long way in fantasy. Like that is one of, it's a unicorn player. It's one of the more rare things you can find. And I don't really think people even know who the hell this guy is. Like, I don't even think people know his name. So I would definitely pick him up. Definitely more in redraft this season. I don't know. I wouldn't say he's like a keeper, but if you could just stash him on the bench and just see what happens, he's somebody you could take a really low risk on or just a waiver claim on. Kyle Anderson, definitely one of the ones I'd look after. My next one is going to be Mikal Bridges from the Phoenix Suns. He already at the end of the season last year was looking like he was boosting his role there in Phoenix when Kelly Oubre went down with the injury. And now that Chris Paul's there, his stats have only become more consistent. And he's another guy that he's going to do a little bit of everything. Some nights he can score 30 points and 13 rebounds. And then, some nights he's scoring a little less, but he's got more rebounds, he's got more steals, he's got more blocks. He does a little bit of all those statistical little categories that you need to fill. And, he's a guy that he's really young and he could only really go up from here. I only see his value going up once people sort of realize like, oh, Mikal Bridges is kind of like third to fourth option over there in Phoenix. And, he's playing next to Devin Booker. He's playing next to DeAndre Ayton. And there's just a lot of opportunity there for him, especially if he just keeps improving his shot. And I really like Mikal Bridges. So if he's sitting on waivers and redraft if you don't have him in Dynasty, he's a big Dynasty candidate that I would get. I would look to get him in Dynasty because I think he could blow up out of nowhere here the next few years. So what we at now? Five on the list? Yeah, 5. So number 5, I'm going to go with Yusuf Nurkic. So he just went out with the injury, and this is going to be a redraft pick right here. This is certainly for redraft. Yusuf Nurkic, he just went down with that injury. He's going to miss, I think they said 6 to 8 weeks it is. So if my math is correct, he should show up near the end of the season and just in time for playoffs, just in time to make it the playoff run. This is a guy that averaged 17 and 12 in the bubble. So he has the talent. He has the ability to like fill up the stat sheet to be he could be one of the best centers, top 10 center in fantasy, no doubt in my mind. So if he comes back, if you can buy him low right now while he's injured and he comes back just in time for the playoffs, he comes back to that form that I'm talking about, that 17 and 12, even just a little bit less than that, say it's 15 and 10. That's a great center piece to have, especially if you're making a playoff push. So in redraft leagues, I would go and buy this guy. Maybe somebody fucking dropped him. I would go and buy low on this guy immediately because I know a lot of people are panicking. Oh shit, I was really banking a lot on Nurkic. Now I don't have a center. If you have pieces to spare, if you have centers to spare, maybe, you have someone like Mason Plumlee or Mitchell Robinson who can kind of make like an instant impact for a guy that will sell Nurkic low. I would go out and get Nurkic immediately, stash him to the playoffs. And, I just think there's a great chance, a lot of upside there for him to be a great piece going into the playoffs and in the playoffs. So number 4, I'm going to go with Jaren Jackson, another Grizzlies player. So he hasn't had a healthy season at all in his career yet, but he has shown so much upside, so many bright flashes, so many bright points. I just feel like he's coming back probably Monday. Someone might be holding on to him. I know in our league there's a guy holding on to him, which is a dynasty league, to see what they got there. But somebody might be like, maybe he's just sitting on waivers because he's injured, or maybe they're like, oh, this guy's been injured all year. I kind of need help right now. I'll sell him low. He's a guy that you could go buy low, and he will be a great, great addition to your team as long as he stays healthy, which I'm hoping with the amount of time, the amount of recovery, the amount of recuperation that he's had now from last year to this season, he can stay healthy for the rest of the season. I mean, he can hit the 3. He's a center. He's a center that can hit threes. He's going to get the rebounds. He's going to get the steals. He's going to get the blocks. He's going to score. He's lined up with Ja Morant. He's going to be looking for him around the rim. This is a perfect buy low candidate right here. And that's in both leagues. If you are looking for something, a sleeper to give you a little edge that you can buy low right now on, and for the rest of the season, he ends up being a starter for you, Jaren Jackson. If you're looking for a key dynasty keeper piece, Jaren Jackson. And yeah, I mean, I would love to have Jaren Jackson. There's more upside I feel there than there is downside with Jaren Jackson. Yeah, it could go wrong. He can get hurt again. That's always the big risk. But if he stays healthy, man, it's going to be a solid piece to have. So now we're entering into the top 3. And for number 3, I'm going to go with Lugens. Is that German? I don't even know how to say his name. Lugens Dort. Everyone's heard about Dort. We all watched playoffs last year. James Harden. put him in a chamber, quote unquote. And this year, after Oklahoma City completely gutted their fucking roster, he's only seen increased opportunity. He's playing next to Shea Gilgis Shea Gilgis Alexander, who has been having a hell of a year, and he's just seeing his minutes go up. He's seeing his playing time go up. His shot is from last season, which in the playoffs where it was like, he had a few games where it was like, okay, yeah, this guy can shoot it, but he needs to work on that shot. From last season to this season, it's already improved exponentially. I mean, this guy can shoot the ball. He can shoot threes. He's a great defender, so that's the big thing. He's going to get you steals. He's going to get you blocks. He's a big body. He's going to be fighting in there. He's getting rebounds, and he's so young. He's so young. They have him on a stupid deal right now for the way that he's playing, and this is a guy in Dynasty that I want because I only see this guy getting better from here on out. In redraft, I maybe stay away from him a little bit more just because I think that there are better options available and he may not put up that consistency that you're looking for. But even then, like if you're just looking for some boost to your bench, go and pick up Dort for the rest of the season. And in Dynasty, I would definitely pick up Dort. I think people are kind of catching on to it, and there might be leagues where he's harder to buy than others, but I know like in my league he was just sitting there, and this is a guy that I would want to have in a dynasty league, keeper league for sure. So number 2, I'm going to go with Richaun Holmes. So this one pains me because this is one that I called before the season. I had Richaun Holmes last year, and I saw what he was doing with Marvin Bagley injured, with can't even remember the names right now, but they had other centers there in Sacramento that they got rid of, and he ended up being the starting center for the rest of the season, and he was pretty solid. Nothing great, but it was like 12 points per game, like 8. Probably less than that, like 5 rebounds or something like that. But he was doing these little stats, and he would have games where he scored 40 fantasy points. He'd have games where he scored 55 fantasy points. And so this was one that I drafted him. I called it before the season. I was like, this guy, he's going to still be the starting center. I don't care if it's on Whiteside's there. They're still going to go with him. And unfortunately, I was trying to like shop him around a little bit because I guess I took him late, and I didn't trust it enough. I thought that there was going to be other better centers there, which there are. There are definitely other better options. But so I was looking around trying to trade him, and I had a few people get in my ear and say, "Hey, like Hassan Whiteside's there now. Marvin Bagley's back from injury. His playing time's going to go down. His stats are going to go down." And I was like, "No, he's the starting center." And then I started listening to a little bit, and they're like, I was like, yeah, you know what? I traded for some other centers, and I was like, I'm just going to drop Richaun Holmes. He's not going to be that crazy. He could help someone else. I was wrong. He's crazy. He's good. He's putting up 40 fantasy points, 30 fantasy points all the time right now. And I don't think people see it because he's on the Sacramento Kings. I know, like in my league, there was someone that caught onto it, but no one else in the league is talking about it except him and me, because I was like, I called it. So if you can go out, find Richaun Holmes on waivers, buy him really low because he's not one of those fancy names that sticks out, you're going to have a solid 30 to 40 fantasy point player every single week. And what more could you ask for? I mean, that's exactly what you're looking for when you say you want a sleeper. You want a guy that nobody else is looking at. He doesn't have the name. He's not even in the overall stats that shock you right now. So go buy him low. This guy is going to take off, and he's already taking off right before our eyes. So number 1, probably won't shock many people. I almost didn't even consider it a sleeper because I think people are kind of already catching on to it. But Chris Boucher, if he's still sitting there on waivers, I know he was on waivers in my league, and that's how I got him, is I put in a waiver claim and picked him up. This was a few weeks ago. But this guy, man, and there's even questions around the Raptors like future at center and like with Aaron Baines and if they get another center. So people might even not want to keep him in a dynasty league. Dude, go out and get Chris Boucher. This dude, his leap from last year to this year is ridiculous, and he does everything. He's the third leading leader in blocks in the NBA. Like, this guy can block, he can steal, he can shoot the three. He's going to score 24 points any given night, maybe more. This dude, I'm telling you, I picked him up. He's got like 55 fantasy points already one time this week, 45, 40. Like, this dude, and if he becomes a starter, which I think he will, being a Raptors fan, this guy is going to be a crazy, crazy, crazy value steal if you can get him. Like, they're like, if you can get him low, if you can get him off waivers, this is a guy you need to get because he's only going to go up from here. I can guarantee he's only going up from here. So that being said, that is the my top 10 fantasy basketball sleepers. So if you have any questions, comments, maybe you think I'm dumb, maybe you think I'm smart, I don't know. Give me your feedback. Listen to my advice. Don't listen to my advice. Doesn't matter to me. This is just my opinion. I'm putting it out there for the world. So thanks for coming by, guys. People that did join. I know there's not many people here, but this will also be up on the Apple and Spotify podcast spot up page later. And I hope everyone has a great weekend.